Hello there, everybody. Thanks very much for tuning back in to another episode of E&Ftv. Today, we're joined by Scott Reed, who's Sales Manager at UpsellGuru. Scott, thanks so much for joining us today.
Tom, nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks very much for joining us. Obviously, we've spoken in the past around a couple of things that you've been sort of working on and I suppose stuff that's going to be very relevant to the discussion today, but also, I think, going forward. So I'm really excited to have you on the show. So thank you so much for obviously taking the time out.
Yeah, my pleasure.
How we usually start the show is usually just finding out a bit about the guest, so a bit about your background, I suppose how you discovered the hospitality industry and so on. So please do, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, California, born and raised, now living in Utrecht, Netherlands, loving it over here. It's been 2.5 years since I moved from San Francisco, and for the love of my life. So that is some really exciting personal news. And I guess what got me here in terms of UpsellGuru, I was in San Francisco working for Salesforce on the business development side of things. And one night I typed in Salesforce, great company, fantastic. Can't say enough good things about them. But I was thinking that I need something a little bit smaller, startup-y, where I can really have an impact. So I typed in travel startups, San Francisco, and up popped Front Desk Anywhere, which is a property management system for independent boutique hotels. And I thought, oh, wow, that's sounds amazing. And lo and behold, I started working there, and that's what launched me into hospitality. And now what is that, like maybe 4 years later, here I am with UpsellGuru, and started March 1st this year. Yeah. So you can imagine quite the time to start a new role in hospitality. But hey, no, can't say this is it's been an amazing ride, and we've gone through some really challenging periods. We're not out of it yet, but I think that's the focus of today, right? Is recovery. How can we help going forward? We're in this together. So that's what brought me here.
Fantastic. And I suppose from your perspective then, coming obviously from where you're sitting in this market, I suppose, what do you feel are the biggest challenges that hotels are facing at the moment?
I think that from what I've seen is a handful of challenges. One being like the hotel is still closed. So the revenue side of things, everybody has suffered from lost revenue, right? And if the hotel is still closed, they don't know when they're going to open. That's challenge number one. Or maybe two, the hotel has reopened, but they're operating on a skeleton crew. They don't know if those furloughed people will come back. Maybe occupancy is sitting at 10, 12%. Yeah. So still not out of the woods yet, doing everything they can to keep the lights on. That's really that's what I've seen the most of in terms of challenges. And then it's like thinking about recovery and how can you generate extra revenue, but then they don't have the manpower to dedicate to these projects. Maybe, in the sense of upselling, like maybe generating an extra $5,000 per month is not enough to move the needle to staying open or to preventing someone from losing their position, losing their role. So I think that's in our face challenges. And then lastly, we just don't know where things are going, right? Like there could still be, knock on wood that we've seen the worst of it, but I think there's still that uncertainty of where are things what's the future like? So that's what I've seen, but what about you? What do you think is?
Yeah, I think in terms of challenges, we're starting to see, a lot of hotels have now sort of opened. I don't think their focus right now is I think it's more on just keeping the doors open, keeping the bills paid and keeping people in their jobs. Yeah. I think the profitability side of it is very much taking a back seat. Of course, don't get me wrong, I think that everybody's still going to be looking at it, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's at the top of their priority, let's put it like that.
I think the good thing is that we will get out of this. People want to travel. I've talked to properties also that have said we've had the best months.
Yeah.
The summer was the best we've ever done. And granted, that's not city center hotels, but the silver lining is people want to travel. We will travel. Humans are social creatures. We want to do that. So it will come.
Yeah. And I suppose I've spoken to a couple of people on the tech side of things, coming from, huge sort of legacy dinosaurs, as one guest called them, but also your sort of smaller sort of new kids on the block, if you like. Now, what's, I suppose, your perspective on, technology? Why is embracing technology so important now more than ever?
I think that ultimately technology helps people, right? So that's the goal of technology, is to make our lives easier. So I think that that's something that we need to think about. With what I think about is streamlining operations, increasing revenue, enhancing the guest experience. And as we know, the industry is, do you say 10 years behind technology? 15? I don't know. There's a gap, right? And you still have silos of information, hotels using 30 different systems to power the hotel. And you're going, wow, that is, and they're not necessarily talking to each other. So you're going, wow, that's definitely a challenge. So I'd say on that, why is tech so important is because the business, as you're trying to improve yourself, you need to think about, embracing change, right? Change is hard, but how do you plan to get out of the situation that we're in? And I think that's where technology can help.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's interesting because going back to humans we're social creatures, but we're also creatures of habit, right? So on the PMS side of things, I've talked to people that said, yeah, well, we know the system is not working for us and it's costing us money and it's hard to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but still not wanting to make a change until the time was perfect. And I just find that really interesting that we'll go through a lot until it's like we can't go any farther, but we don't want to step out of our comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think it's important to look about going forward is how can we mix things up and think about new ways to do things that we haven't done in the past. The last little piece is some interesting conversations I've had with really fantastic brands, but they say, no, the digital guest experience isn't important to us. Our guests don't connect with that. We prefer to send out handwritten letters, or we prefer to call every guest on the phone, or we only do upsells in person.
All right.
All important things, like that's awesome. Personal touch, it should never go away. But I always ask the question, but why not add a digital piece? Why not use technology to help on that side of things? It can't hurt.
Sure.
But that's my perspective. But what do you think?
I think I think I've had a couple of guests on the show, and one of the big discussion points was tech debt. So as you say, we are creatures of habit. The problem is that we get to a point where, is the tech actually doing what we need it to do anymore? Or have we got to a point where we actually have to, and we don't have a choice anymore? It's become a necessity. Or they look at the productivity side of it. As you so rightly said, tech is there to enable us to have a streamlined process, have an easier way of life, offload some of the more manual elements of our roles to a tech piece of kit, if you like, a piece of software. The problem is that we're now in a situation where things aren't really a choice anymore. It's more, as I said before, a necessity. This market that we find ourselves in, it's not a case of, oh, well, you could or you couldn't. It's you either do or you don't. And if you don't, you're already behind the competition that are implementing these systems, are implementing different ways of doing things from the tech point of view. I think what's interesting, though, because I've actually spoken to two commercial leaders regarding upselling, which is actually one of the reasons when I saw obviously you pop up on LinkedIn and things like that, and obviously we had a conversation. It was just a really interesting opportunity to learn a bit more from somebody that's actually in that world, because from the people that I've been talking to anyway, upselling is never, well, it just hasn't traditionally been an element that people focus on too much. Whereas we see it in the airlines all the time. I mean, I've experienced it myself. I've got a flight coming up and then I get a sudden email saying, hey, do you want to bid for an upgrade? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to bid for an upgrade.
Yeah.
But, you know, for a fraction of the cost, you know, if I get it, great. If I don't, no worries. Have I ever had that with a hotel booking? No. Have I ever received any sort of opportunity to add to my booking or anything like that? Generally, again, no. Which is one of the reasons why I think now more than ever, this could be an opportunity for a lot of people to actually think, this could be great for us, because if we've got people coming to our hotel few and far between right now, if we're trying to extract as much as possible, why wouldn't we? And that's a big question for you actually, is I suppose, how does upselling contribute to the recovery of our industry, not only from a, I suppose, monetary point of view, but also occupancy and so on?
Yeah. Well, dude, I love that you've seen the bidding process, you've engaged. I mean, it's fun. It takes the guest experience and it puts them in control of it, right? It's like you said, I'm willing to pay this much. I want to pay this much. And if I win, yes. And if I don't, I should have bid more. So yeah, it's really, really interesting that you brought that up, because I've been listening to, well, E&Ftv obviously, but other podcasts and programs around the revenue side of things, because making up lost revenue, maximizing spend is top of mind, right? That is the biggest challenge. But I haven't heard much on upselling. So I'm really excited for this, because I know that, like we said, right, the priorities, maybe upselling isn't number one, but we will get there, because maximizing spend, I do think, is what everyone's thinking about. If we have 10% occupancy, how can we make the most of that? But then also think about the guest experience, right? So that's the beauty of UpsellGuru or upselling in general, is that you're giving the guest options to make them happier in their stay, make them more excited about their trip. So yeah, I think that's where we come in to help, right? Is that's what we're going back to, that streamline operations, increase revenue, enhance the guest experience. Like, that is the idea behind it. And yeah, when it's automated, when emails go out, maybe 2 to 3 days before arrival, 3 to 5 days before arrival, the guest is in that travel mode of like, okay, it's here, and they can do what they want. They don't have that pressure of like, you're being sold something. They're like, okay, this is what I want to do. I think that's really important.
I think one of the biggest things, and obviously we've spoken previously about this, but I suppose the big objection right now, the big objection to looking at opportunities, I would say, that maybe you guys are offering is, one, as we've said, is it at the top of the priority list right now? And I suppose the argument is it probably should be. But I suppose for all of our audience now, and for obviously anybody watching, whether that be on YouTube or on LinkedIn, the main argument is, I don't have time right now, or I can't be dealing with this, or I don't know if it's really for us. What's your message to those guys that are sort of saying, look, I'll deal with this another time, or let's catch up in a couple of months' time, when your, I suppose, approach and your opinion right now is, of course, well, this should be your immediate sort of focus, because you're losing so much revenue when we could help. So I suppose what's your argument to that?
Yeah, that is a very common occurrence. And my philosophy is like, I want to show how we can help. But if it's not the top priority, if it's not about, it's about you though, and end of the day. So if you don't see it as the most important thing to do with your time right now, that's okay. I'll be here when the time is right. Yeah. But my pushback is, why wait? If you could generate extra revenue now, help solve the problem now, why push that back? Like, what other things are you doing that's more important? So that's that's what I would always want to know, right? Like, where are the priorities? And then I think the other thing is that just experience in the past. Oh, I've used this system before. It never worked. Yeah. So that feeling of, oh, well, we upsell at the front desk, so we don't need to do this, or we already do it. So it's working with that and just knowing that, if you see the system, you realize, oh, you know what? I can set it up in an hour. And then it's with the integration with the PMS, it's automating everything.
Yeah.
So that you don't, if there's a two-way integration, you can't 100% automate the process.
Yeah.
Right. Or maybe there is some manual work of changing a folio, but that's generating extra revenue. So every hotel that I've talked to says that's not a problem. We don't mind spending 30 seconds changing a folio to generate that extra revenue. So it's about education, I think, and learning more about what the hotel is going through at that moment. But yeah, I mean, what would you, to answer or to ask that question back to you, how would you, like, what has your experience shown? What do you think is a good approach?
Yeah, I mean, good question. Again, I talk to a lot of, it's weird actually, I've been talking to a lot of businesses outside of recruitment, outside of, I suppose, direct sort of hospitality, but more the businesses that are supporting hospitality. And this question has actually come up a few times. So I'm kind of happy you asked that actually. But my approach has very much been, I've taken my foot off the gas altogether. So I've stopped, the recruitment cycle of calling my clients every 2 weeks to say, hey, have you got any jobs? Or, hey, what's been going on? Because it's quite obvious what's been going on with my clients. They're going through a very difficult time. It's an incredibly sensitive time. And the last thing they need is a recruiter, along with every other recruiter out there, calling them every 2 minutes when they're going through the redundancy processes. They just announced consultation periods. They don't need some salesy guy to come up and say, hey, I can help you with your recruitment. We don't have any recruitment. Go away. You obviously don't know me. You don't know my business. You don't know what we've got going on. My approach has been very much to help, support, provide something that nobody else is doing right now, and take a step back and just say to them, look, you know where I am. You've got my details. As soon as you're ready, or if you just want to talk, just call me. And the amount of clients I've had come to me regarding salary scales. So, what we're paying, should we be paying more? We've just gone through a restructure, but we're keeping a certain sort of number of people here, but these are their skill sets. What do you think? These types of questions that I don't think generally recruiters get asked. The only questions they really get asked are, what's your fee?
How much does it cost?
Exactly. How much does it cost? What are the types of candidates that you deal with? And if you get past a certain point, it's usually, what are your specialisms? How does it work? And so on and so forth. But these types of open, consultative sort of conversations where you're collaborating with an approach rather than just coming in as a external person saying, hi, I can do this. I've found that they're a lot more receptive. They're a lot more sort of, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And that's where I think the sales elements in our industry right now, in my opinion, they do need to take that step back. Of course, I understand that sales need to be made. I know that money needs to be coming in because I'm a business owner myself. I'm feeling the same pressure. But does that really mean that we start pushing people away? No, we need to be bringing people closer. And as you said, you so rightly said at the very start of the interview, you said, we're in this together. That's the approach. And I think too many people are using that phrase, or using that statement as almost like a buzz phrase to put on their LinkedIn. When in fact, behind their scenes, they're still on that sell. Where in fact, my business is very proud to promote the fact that we are putting the industry first. And we have been for some time. So no, I suppose that would be my approach. And I hope that answers your question. But yeah.
It does. I think, it's like everything, right? In this, where we're at, everything it's challenging. For me, it's about starting conversations and learning. And from there, it's like, sometimes there's really like, if we cannot help, then we can't help. And that's fine, because if what we're offering isn't going to help the hotel, the company, then nobody wins. And that's not what we're going for at the end of the day, right? It's finding the win-win situations and really partnering with hotels and going forward together. But again, those are conversations to be had down the line. So yeah, I think that's the idea.
I agree. And in terms of, I suppose, UpsellGuru. So for anybody that I suppose hasn't heard of you, or they haven't experienced what you guys do, or whatever, it would be good to understand, I suppose, a little bit more about you guys, but also, what you guys have been doing during the pandemic and so on.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, UpsellGuru is a bidding system for upgrades, primarily pre-arrival. That's what we've done. And the bidding system is unique, right? It puts the guest in control of their experience. It's been used, like you mentioned, in the airline industry. And I believe, like billions of dollars have been made in ancillary revenue these last 10 years or so. So it works. It's a great differentiator for us. We love that part of what we do. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of the last couple months and what we're doing to innovate and help is, well, we started with some digital guest communication tools as well. So expanding on our current core business of upselling. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about adopting tech. Well, that came a lot quicker, right? With everything that's happened, because now you have to have some type of digital guest communication or check-in, ideally limiting lines, limiting touch points. So what we did was digital registration cards for the guest, concierge, room directories, concierge email, room directory. So the guest has all that information digitally, mm-hmm. but also in-house upselling. Maybe every hotel, social distancing, maybe there's less moments to actually talk to the guest. Maybe you want to text with them. Yeah. So that's something new that we developed. Same goes with the registration cards. We also have, we're coming out soon with the ability to upsell via the registration card as well. So those are some things that we've done, but it's thinking about how can we help the hotel, what's important to them, what's important to the guest, and going from there.
Fantastic. Well, Scott, thank you so much for obviously taking the time out to talk to us today. As I said, after a few conversations that I've been having with industry people, and after our conversation a few weeks ago, I just thought it was just a great opportunity to get a completely different perspective, but also an innovative, I suppose, tool that generally we haven't used and we could be using. And should be using. Great argument. Should be using. There you go, guys.
Yeah. What do you have to lose?
I would agree. This is exactly the thing, and I do believe that there is an opportunity. That's why I actually used that phraseology earlier. It's an opportunity rather than just another piece of tech. It's an opportunity for a potential revenue stream that they might not have had before. But no, as I say, thank you so much for obviously joining us today. I really do appreciate it. Guys, it'd be really interesting to understand what you thought of the conversation today. Do you think upselling is something that you're missing out on right now, or do you think it could be something that could be implemented? Scott, thanks so much.
Tom, thanks for having me. Obviously excited to learn more about these conversations or to have these conversations. And best of luck. We'll talk soon.
Definitely. Well, guys, if you want to contact, obviously, Scott directly, I'll make sure that he's tagged below. And obviously, if you want to discuss anything with regards to upselling techniques or what they've got to offer, please do get in touch with him directly. But thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and make sure you check on who's on next week's episode now.